WiSP Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 4 of the WeCOACH Podcast on WiSP Sports. Please join us every 2 weeks as we sit down with some of the best and brightest women coaches, leaders, and industry experts in the world of sports for fun and inspiring conversations. I'll be your host, Megan Kahn, Executive Director of WeCOACH. This podcast is a co-production of WeCOACH and WiSP Sports.
I don't care about boys.
WeCOACH is the premier nonprofit organization committed to recruiting, advancing, and retaining women coaches of all sports and levels. Through programming, resources, and an engaged community, we are changing the landscape for current female coaches and the next generation of young women who dream of following in their footsteps. Today's guest is one who is beloved in the volleyball world as well as the community of Tallahassee. There aren't too many women in the world who are more passionate about helping female coaches in women's sports than Cecile Reynaud. From 1976 to 2001, Cecile guided the Florida State women's volleyball program to over 635 victories. Having served her community on various boards and charities, in addition to her various roles on the national and international stage in volleyball, which includes stints on the USA Volleyball Board of Directors, Cecile is also an accomplished professor, author, and sought-after speaker. Last year, she was named to the American Volleyball Coaches Association Hall of Fame and will be formally inducted next week during the AVCA convention in Minneapolis. Let's hear what she has to say. Welcome, Cecile. Thanks for joining us on the WeCOACH podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm jumping out of the gate, and I'm going to do my best to not date you here, but I really want to dive into your childhood because it was really just on the cusp of Title IX. You were All-American at Southwest Missouri State, which is now Missouri State. Can you talk about what it was like growing up in that time period and then how you evolved into such an accomplished volleyball player?
Well, I was really fortunate that my family supported sports, and I knew, at an early age I want to be involved in it. So I ended up at Southwest Missouri State. I played for two outstanding women that coached volleyball, Dr. Mary Jo Wynn and Linda Dollar. And I also played 2 years of field hockey, but then gave that up my last 2 years. So I was just at the right place at the right time. AIAW years, we played all the time. We were a great team, one of the best in the country until we'd get up against a UCLA or Stanford in those early times.
Mm-hmm. So you really did play for two legends in the game, and anyone that knows anything about Missouri athletics, which I'm going to slip this in, congratulations on your Hall of Fame induction last year. You really did blaze a trail pre-Title IX, and then talk about what it was like when Title IX came into effect and how much effect that maybe had on your...
Well, I was coaching at Missouri State. I was coaching at Florida State at that time when Title IX came through. And so I was fortunate to be involved at a university that really believed in supporting women's sports. And our athletic director, Barbara Palmer, set up our program so we could be successful and fully funded. So we were fortunate to have an athletic director that believed in us. And it was exciting to be able to go out and recruit athletes and give them full scholarships.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Did you always know you wanted to be a coach?
Well, yes. When I was young, I really enjoyed everything I was involved in sport-wise, and I played a lot of different things in high school. And, played softball during the summer and, basketball, field hockey. And I just thought it was exciting. I really never even considered a career in anything else.
Oh, that's amazing for all of our young ones out there to hopefully now see so many women succeeding on the sidelines. So that's inspiring to hear. One of your claims to fame, and we're going to talk about your career at Florida State, which, as many people will hear as this podcast goes on, you have many claims to fame, but one of them was coaching Gabby Reece in your time as head coach at Florida State. I know all of our listeners are dying to know what that was like.
Well, she was here in the late 80s and early 90s, and I just happened to run across her in Tampa during a spring tournament and had a scholarship open, so invited her to come to Florida State University and be on a full scholarship. Well, she decided to do that, and then once she got here, of course, she was beautiful and was being pursued by modeling agencies and had done some of that when she was in high school. So they wanted her to model while she was playing volleyball. And of course, the NCAA rules at that time wouldn't allow you to be paid for that. So the first year she was a scholarship athlete, and then she gave up that scholarship to be able to be paid. And, some weekends she would make more than I was making as a full-time volleyball coach at a Division I university. But we worked very closely together, getting through all those rules and regulations. And she would travel during the spring and model, and then come back during the summer and make up her hours so she could compete. But we got to be very close, and I think she's probably one of the toughest athletes I've ever coached. But, we also had our uh, conversations that were kind of serious. But, she'd try and tell me how to coach, and I asked her where she was in 1976. And she said, I was in sixth grade, and I said, I was standing right here doing the same thing. So she, backed off a little bit, but has just remained a great friend for life and really a remarkable inspiration to so many people.
Yeah, I know you have great respect for Gabby and Laird and their family. You spend time with them in California, and they split their time between Hawaii and California. And can you talk a little bit? I know you were just so impressed. She was recently back on Florida State's campus for some of the celebratory events you have going on there in Tallahassee. Can you talk a little bit about what that meant to Florida State athletics in the community?
Sure. And, we've kept in touch with her and visited with her in Malibu and in Kauai, where they live. And for her to come back and have her jersey retired, I think it meant as much to her as it did to us. And she was so gracious with all the fans and people that remembered her playing and have since followed her career. And, she took time to take pictures with everybody and do television interviews, newspaper interviews, and signed autographs the whole time she was here. Met with our former alumni that started here in 1968. And it was just a real treat to have her back on campus.
Absolutely. And now, knowing the impact you had on her life, I don't know that if you hear her talk about it, she recognized it then, but she recognized the significance and the importance of having a very strong female role model in her life. And when she talks about that, it's a tribute to you. And in the larger grand scheme of things, it's the foundation of WeCOACH and our important work. So thank you for that.
Well, and I think it's just so important that coaches realize they're working with people, and everybody's going to be different and have different situations. So I think understanding what athletes might be going through, whether it's something as big as this or, other simple problems they might be going through, just you have to work with them as individuals.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. At the time of your retirement, which after 26 seasons, I believe you were one of only 8 active coaches with more than 600 wins. What are some of the biggest lessons that you learned in your career?
Well, I think it's thinking about, we don't really coach a sport, we coach people. And I think coaches need to understand that. We spend a lot of time talking about techniques and tactics, but you really don't get anywhere if you can't get the people to do those things. So I think coaches need to be aware that when they are studying various things, it really needs to be how can they improve their relationships with some of those athletes and inspire them to be the best that they can be. I think, we've got to keep it fun. In all of those years, I think it's important to understand that all athletes, Olympians, and at all levels, do better when they're having fun. It doesn't have to be giggly, but it's got to be tough but enjoyable. So as you're going through that process, they're going to want to come back tomorrow, and I think that's important for coaches to remember.
Absolutely. When you look back on those years and you reflect on those moments, what comes back to you as the most rewarding times?
Well, Megan, it's pretty interesting that you don't really think of the wins, and when athletes get back together, they don't say, oh, remember when we beat Louisville, or remember when we beat Pittsburgh. They don't really talk about that. They talk about the moments that happened, not just, on the court. It's not about the wins, but things that happened to them while they were here on campus and together. I think one of my favorite memories, though, was when we won the 1998 championship, the ACC championship, and my team had asked me if I would get a tattoo if we won. And yes, we used that as motivation all year. And so at the end of that championship, I had to go in and get a tattoo. And the only thing I would do differently is I wouldn't put the year on it, because 1998 was last century already. And so that's a little scary.
Can you share with our listeners what that tattoo is? I'm not going to ask you where. I just said what it is.
It's on my ankle. One of our athletes' parents was an artist. She taught art. And so she designed a volleyball with a kind of a Seminole headdress and a feather coming down from it. So it's definitely unique. And our sports information director saw me coming out of the tattoo parlor on a main street here in Tallahassee and pulled me aside and said, it looked like you. And I said, that was me. And he said, okay. I was worried. And I said, nope, my team was there with me. And that's what we did.
You might be able to categorize this as also one of the biggest lessons you learn is not to date your tattoo.
Yes, for sure.
So when this goes live next week, you'll be formally introduced amongst your peers and colleagues into the AVCA Hall of Fame, which is a very prestigious and worthy recognition. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's overwhelming, really, Megan. I've been in the AVCA since it started. I've served in so many different roles at that organization, on the board several times, chaired the All-American Committee, chaired the Awards Committee, and I've also emceed this coaching luncheon for probably 20 years. So I've heard everybody give their Hall of Fame remarks. And so it's going to be very difficult to summarize your thoughts into a 5-minute talk to a group of your colleagues, but it's very humbling, and I'm very excited about it.
You stole my thunder, because my follow-up to this was going to be, would you rather be emceeing or would you rather be in the induction seat?
I don't know why they're not asking me to do both, but I think I'd rather be receiving the award. And again, it's going to be such an honor, and it'll be emotional just to look out at all the different coaches that I've either worked with or had in clinics or coached or worked with as officials and administrators. So it's going to be a great time.
It really is. And I'm privileged that I'm going to be in the audience with you that day to watch that moment. But really for you to look out, and you're such a face of AVCA and USA Volleyball. Really, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you share with our listeners about the various roles you've played with USA Volleyball nationally as well as internationally, and even maybe touch a little bit with sitting volleyball?
I've always believed in getting involved in all areas of the sport. And so I served on the USA Volleyball Board back in the 80s. And then I'm currently on the USA Volleyball Board again. And it means so much to me to have a voice on what's happening with the future of our sport and making sure that we're taking care of our athletes and our coaches and our referees, and really just trying to guide the sport as we have for all these years. I was also asked to be the team leader for the USA sitting volleyball for the 2012 Paralympic Games. And while I didn't have any experience in coaching sitting volleyball, I had some administrative skills. So I was so lucky to get to go with a group of talented athletes and coaches to London and live in the Paralympic Village and watch them receive a silver medal and work so hard for that. But what an experience. And I'm so glad that they've received more recognition. The Paralympians have received more recognition nationally. And our sitting team won the gold medal in this past Paralympic Games.
Absolutely. It's very, very important work. And USA Volleyball, I think as we look at volleyball as a sport, we know is probably the number one trending sport in America right now. So big shoes and big work for you guys to be doing.
Well, we enjoy it, that's for sure. And there is a lot of work to do. And, we spent a lot of time developing our safe sport model. We started back on that in 2010 and feel like we have one of the strongest programs to protect coaches and athletes while they play our sport.
With that being such a hot topic right now, can you share more about safe sport and how that plays in for the protection mechanisms?
Well, we've tried to come up with various recommendations to put together for a committee, and those were included making sure there were 2 adults always involved with athletes, that we weren't giving private lessons or private meetings, but there's always 2 people around. We talk about different ways of travel. We shouldn't be giving athletes rides home by themselves. And also the biggest, I thought, topic I brought up that I thought was important is that the athletes need to understand what it is to be in a safe environment and what they should do if they don't feel safe at any time, and that others need to report something if they see something that if something seems suspicious, they need to get involved and make sure they report it to the appropriate authorities.
Which is everything that's going on in the sport landscape is so important right now.
Sure.
So looking back and knowing what you know now on such a distinguished, not only coaching career, but an administrative career and a speaker and author and all of the tags that we could align with Cecile Reynaud, do you have any regrets or would you have done anything differently?
I don't really have any regrets. I think this is the same career I would do if I were starting out as a young woman again. I thought it was really important to be involved, and I started at such a young age. I think I was 22 and some of the athletes were 22. So, I really had to set myself apart and make sure, that I drew that line early. And I think that was helpful. I did turn down a couple of jobs at other universities early in my career. And so the good news was I stayed at one university for a long time, which gives you a great pension. The bad news is I could have gone some other places, but I'm totally happy that I stayed at Florida State, and I've been very proud of that career.
Absolutely. And you're an icon in the Tallahassee community. I know you've served on a number of boards and given to a number of charities and services. Talk about some of those in the Tallahassee community that are near and dear to your heart.
Well, I've served as a board member and president of the board for the Refuge House, which is the domestic and sexual violence center here in town. I did that once I retired from coaching, but that took an enormous amount of time, and I certainly learned, what a crisis we have in so many areas in that aspect. And then I also serve on the FSU Varsity Club board, the Hall of Fame committee, just a variety of things at the university.
As well as you teach in their graduate level online coaching certification program as well.
Yes, I did. I retired full time from teaching in 2015, but I have continued to teach some classes online for the graduate level. There's a class called Athlete Recruitment, and it's how to recruit athletes, an advanced coaching class, a motor learning class. So I've been involved with that somewhat.
And what is it that you still love about keeping your fingers in that mix?
Well, I just think teaching coaches and educating coaches and making sure they're prepared with whatever they come up against, that they can be successful. So I enjoy people that have been through the classes say, oh, I get this now. I understand that now. I feel more prepared going into working with my team or dealing with parents or injuries or communication issues. So I enjoy trying to help people be successful.
Absolutely, which is a perfect segue to talk about WeCOACH. For our listeners, Cecile serves as the president of our board of directors and was one of the founding board members of our organization back in 2011. And I know I'm not entirely biased when I say this because we have research to prove that our work is making a significant difference in the lives of women in the profession. What do you see now in the industry as a whole that has changed, maybe even just in the last 7 to 10 years since your involvement and really the foundation of WeCOACH?
Well, I think when we first started out, we were coaching against women, and that's just the way it was. And then more men got involved in coaching, and I think that's fine. And certainly they're outstanding coaches. I think our organization, WeCOACH, has really tried to be the flagship organization that helps out women coaches just by helping them network and mentor and really get the skills that they need to be successful. I don't think somebody should be a coach just because they're a woman. I think they should be a coach because they're the best woman. And so I feel very strongly our organization has stepped up to help with those educational classes and workshops and networking, again, that I think is so important to female coaches.
Absolutely. Without letting the cat out of the bag, but knowing what you do about our new strategic plan that we're working diligently on and about to implement, can you give a little bit of a teaser for what's coming next? What can coaches look forward to?
Well,
don't put me on the spot.
I think we want to try and make sure that we continue developing educational settings where women can continue to grow if they want to advance, that we really make sure that they're at the next level. And maybe we try and just hand select coaches to come in for some educational seminars and, weekends or sessions just to make sure they're prepared to go on to the next level. And again, just being polished coaches on the court or on the field and having enough confidence to do what they want to do. And, Megan, I think in 2005, I put that book together, She Can Coach, because I believed it that long ago. And so I really think women that want to be coaches can learn from some of the best women in the country that have been successful.
Absolutely, which that book features a ton of them. Can you share with our listeners where they can find that book?
Well, I believe you can get it from Amazon.com or Human Kinetics. And, I've read every book by all the male coaches about every sport. And I was thirsty to find out what did the top women do about things and what did they think about things. So, we were able to get Pat Summitt and Mary Wise and Nell Fortner and 20 different coaches in 15 sports to really talk about various areas and how they could be successful.
And this all ties back to WeCOACH and the fact that we're serving women across multiple sports and multiple levels. And so many of these things are not sport specific. They're transferable across the levels. Even if you look at grassroots all the way up to, we now have professional coaches as members of our organization.
And I think I think that's really important, though. People understand that they need to talk to people in other sports. Sometimes you don't want to share issues you might be having with coaches in your own sport. So you've got to be able to, if you're a volleyball coach, reach out to a basketball coach or field hockey or soccer to really get to know them and some of their advice on how they handle things.
And in our programs, I know you sat in the back of the room, so you've witnessed this when we bring coaches to an event or to one of our coaches academies and the light bulb goes off when you see them in a room. It might be the first time they've been in a room full of just female coaches. And the light bulb goes off that all these other sports and all these women are battling some of the same challenges that they're battling. It just is really unique and puts them into a very empowering position.
It's one of the greatest feelings ever, just to walk in and look at a room full of women that are passionate about the same thing you're passionate about and feel free to share with each other.
So now you're retired. You've alluded to it a little bit earlier. You're probably one of the busiest people I know ever in retirement because you are always on the go and always doing things. What keeps you motivated? When you wake up in the morning, what gets you out of bed?
I've just always been like this. I think my mother told me in high school I need to slow down, and I went, okay. But it just never resonated with me. I don't know. I'm just fortunate. I have a lot of energy. I like to be involved. And so I get up and do a variety of things, whether it's biking or going to work out or going to a meeting or I don't know. I know a lot of people look at me and go, where do you get this energy? And I don't know. It's just a natural, and I'm fortunate to have it.
Mm-hmm. If you could forecast what the landscape is going to look like for women in the coaching profession or 10 or 15 years, and it was a dream of yours, what would you say?
That we would be actively recruiting young women off of our teams now and in our programs to seriously think about a career in coaching, and that they automatically think of that as a career and not as something that just a few of them do. And I think we've seen that happen. We've now got members of the USA national volleyball team coming back to different colleges and taking roles in coaching. And, we want to have all sports do that. So it's not just a mistake that somebody gets into it, but it's a full-fledged career that young women know, and they take off on it from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm, that they know it exists, that they want to follow in somebody's footsteps. It's the whole recruitment pipeline.
And they see that female coaching, and they know it's a possibility, and they can lead a successful life having that as a career.
If she can see her, she can be her.
That's right.
And there's now so many moms. Mary Wise is certainly one of them that have proven that it's certainly attainable to be a coach and a mom and do both well.
And I think that's also rewarding when athletes come back to campus and, some of them are coaching and they bring their kids back. And it's so rewarding to see that. And we have a young woman here in town who's got 3 children. One's now in college, one's a senior, and another one that's still in high school. And she runs a very successful club. She works, and it's, people can certainly have a very exciting, fulfilling career and raise a family and do a wonderful job of both.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I think the more we can celebrate and share those stories, so the younger generation, the younger assistant coaches who maybe are questioning that balance really have role models and can see that it can be done.
Oh, and it's done by a lot of women, and it's done very well. And in fact, they're almost even better coaches because they are so much, or they've just got, really budget their time. So they're very on top of things whenever they get to the office or to the gym, and they're really prepared. So it's been fun to watch.
Absolutely. If we poked your veins, you'd probably bleed garnet and gold, right? So now with the year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary of women's athletics at Florida State, which you had a hand in developing all of these initiatives for the year, can you talk about what that means for 50 years of female athletics at Florida State and some of the things you have going on?
Well, to think that 1968 was our first, the women in volleyball were the first team on campus to play intercollegiate athletics is really pretty exciting. And then, of course, other teams, sport teams joined in after that. But we were able to have an event in September to really kick this off. And we had a lot of athletes come back, and staff, managers, trainers, assistant coaches, and coaches. And then each sport is having a reunion this year. And the volleyball reunion was a couple of weeks ago. And just to have some of the athletes from the 68, 69, 70, 71 teams, and those coaches, we had 3 of those other coaches back in town, and have them spend time with the indoor team, and also the beach team was able to meet some of those athletes, although we didn't have beach volleyball except for the past few years. But they sat, and the older women talked about what it was like when they were in school, and what they did, and how they had to buy their own uniforms, and we really had some of the younger athletes in tears because they really were so appreciative of their history, and it was an amazing event to witness that. And I think we've got to really make sure we caution people to not forget their history and make sure that their athletes are aware of what went on before them.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. The importance of and history of women's sports and Title IX. Not everyone necessarily recognizes some of those early challenges, which you're certainly a trailblazer.
Thank you. It's been fun, and making sure that everybody understands, what's gone on in the past. And we're pretty aware of our men's sport history, but we've got to really make sure we take care of that in women's.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. You're constantly helping others grow, which includes me as the executive director of our organization. So many coaches and players of the game are looking for those tips, those leadership skills, or where do you go to find nuggets of information? How do you continue to personally grow?
Well, I like to read. I like to I look at various websites. I listen to people here in town. I'm fortunate to know a lot of coaches, a lot of faculty members, and really just try and learn something new a little bit every day from various people. But it's just interesting to always have this curiosity. And, I went back for my PhD while I was coaching, and took me 4 years, but I finished that in 98. And I did it because I just wanted to learn. And it was just interesting. If you can have the curiosity to continue learning and growing and sharing your information with others, it's very rewarding.
Mm-hmm, that thirst for lifelong knowledge and growth. So you alluded to reading, and we talked about your book, She Can Coach. Outside of that, what are some of your favorite leadership books?
Well, I like I like various books like Getting to Yes, I think is a good book on negotiation. And, I'm not sure that I can pull up any off the top of my head, but it's if you find somebody that you really like and that you like to follow their career, and you can read any material that they've put out or any books or autobiographies, I think those are always good. Any business books, I used to go to the business book section of the library, or now you can download any of these and see what's trending there, and really understand how to create a successful business, and that's how you grow your program, I think.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, because sports is a business, whether we want to like it or not.
Right.
So we end every episode with some quick hitters. I'm going to rapidly fire some questions at you, and you come back with the first thing that comes to mind. Sound good?
Sure.
If you could only use one word to describe yourself, what would you say?
Fun.
Fun. Ooh, I love it. What do you like to do for fun?
I like to bike ride.
Well, that was going to lead to my next question, because I was going to ask, if you could pick, is it bike ride or golf course?
Well, I like to bike ride for exercise, but I certainly like to play golf for fun.
What's the favorite golf course you've played? Or courses? I'll let you choose more than one.
I've been to several courses in Hawaii that were pretty fun. There's also one at Coeur d'Alene that's got that island green that was pretty good. I mean, some of them are so beautiful, and it's such a privilege to be out there. I wish I were maybe a little better, but those have been some of my favorites.
Awesome. I love it. So calling a match or coaching a match?
I like calling a match because you can study both teams. You can try and watch their strategy and tactics, and then hopefully lead the audience through what's going on. But then at the end of the match, you don't have to figure it out if you lost. So it's nice to be able to come home and relax and know that that's not a burden that I have to figure out if one team lost and I'm coaching that team. So calling it has been a little more relaxing.
Yeah, you get to go home happy. For our audience, Cecile moonlights as a volleyball broadcaster for the ACC network. Your biggest role model?
That was Pat Summitt. She was a great friend. I was fortunate to meet her in the early 80s. We spent a long time together, and she was just tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much missed in the sports world. She was one who transcended sports, and I think it's indicative of when we talk about transcending sports here, because your biggest role model was somebody not even in your sport.
Sure, so. It is. She was great.
If you could invite any 2 to 3 people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Well, I would invite my family, my parents, my partner. I think, those are the people that I miss talking to. And, while there are other more famous people, I think the people that helped me grow up and be successful are the ones I'd like to spend time with.
Absolutely. And I know you love your dinner party, so I had to slip that question in there.
Great.
We're going to end with, if you could share one piece of advice for the next generation of women coaches, what would you say?
Again, realize that you're coaching people and keeping it fun. I think those two things will get you a long way.
This was fantastic. So many nuggets, such an inspiring conversation. Let me end by thanking you for being such a voice leader and champion for female coaches and women's sports in general, and for continuing to pour your heart and soul into our work of our organization.
Well, thank you for your leadership of We Can Coach.
Inside stories, interviews, and cutting-edge tips from the leading coach in ice hockey. Tune in to Hockey Talk with Shannon Miller. This is WiSP Sports.
Thanks for listening to today's show with Cecile Reynaud. Every 2 weeks, we'll sit down with female coaches, experts, and industry leaders in the world of sports. Our podcast features dynamic conversations, explores coaching insights and gender equity, and shares stories of courage and resilience to empower you on your coaching journey. Subscribe to WiSP Sports on your podcast app to catch all of the new shows. Follow us and share your comments on Twitter at WeCOACH and at WiSP Sports, or on Facebook at WeCOACH Sports and at WiSP Sports. The show notes for today's episode can be found on our WeCOACH podcast show page at wispsports.com, where you also find more coverage on women's sports. I do want to share with our listeners to check out our new online store where you can pick up your favorite WeCOACH merchandise. The holidays are right around the corner, so be sure to check it out on our website. That website, WeCOACHsports.org. You'll also find information on how to become a WeCOACH member. We have resources and price points suitable for all levels of sports. We would love to have you join our community of like-minded women. Please tune in 2 weeks as we sit down with internationally recognized sports life coach Carlette Patterson, CEO of Patterson Sports Ventures. I promise you'll leave that episode smiling and learning how to score more 10 moments in your life. Until next time, all sports, one voice, WeCOACH.
That's just the way